In the bustling A city, a sudden commotion breaks the tranquility as a monster emerges from the now ruined buildings. The monster's arrival is met with instant resistance as the Hero Association immediately dispatches two renowned heroes, Lightning Max and Smile Man. However, despite the valiant efforts of Lightning Max and Smile Man, the monstrous creature proves to be too formidable, overpowering both heroes with ease and continues on his ruthless path of devastation. In the midst of chaos, Saitama, who had been keeping a watchful eye on the unfolding events through the news, feels a surge of determination coursing through his veins, compelling him to take action. Back at the ruins, the monster walks towards a wailing child, but before he could put his impure hands on her, Saitama, wearing a hero's suit, staves the girl. When the monster mockingly asks for an introduction, Saitama says that he is just a guy that plays hero for fun. Upon hearing this, the monster retorts by telling Saitama that his story sounds half-assed. He continues on by informing Saitama that he was born from the constant stream of pollution and is called the Vaccine Man. Unbothered by the Vaccine Man's presence, Saitama hears the monster ramble on about how Earth gave birth to him so he can eliminate the humankind that keeps destroying the planet. As the Vaccine Man angrily vents about humans, Saitama deals him a blow which instantly kills him. Bits of the defeated Vaccine Man scatter across the ground like confetti as Saitama's anguished scream fills the air, expressing his frustration over how the entire fight was once again wrapped up with a single punch. 3 years ago, when exhausted, Saitama is stopped by an overgrown crab that reveals he ate way too many crabs and transformed into a crablant. When the crablant asks Saitama why he isn't running in the opposite direction, Saitama discloses to him that he is unemployed and has faced way too many rejections, prompting him to not give a darn about anything else. As Saitama directly confronts the monster, asking him what he will do to him now, Crablant states that since his eyes are as lifeless as his, he will let him go. Before leaving, the overgrown crab monster tells Saitama that he is hunting a big-chinned brat. Saitama proceeds with his day when coincidentally he stumbles upon a boy with a butt for a chin. He instantly pegs him for the Crablant's hunting prey. Curiously, Saitama asks him why the crab monster is after him, to which the boy tells him that it's because he drew nipples on the monster while he was asleep. Shocked by the boy's reply, Saitama wonders whether he should help him or not. After taking a look at the boy's face, Saitama decides to walk away. However, when Crabling appears in the park, Saitama's body moves against his will as he rushes to save the boy from harm's way. With the boy still in his protective care, Saitama tries to reason with the Crablanti. The monster shuts him down by saying that he has already mutilated hundreds of people. He then warns Saitama to step away. In response, Saitama bursts into a heartfelt laughter. After calming down, Saitama tells Crablant that he resembles a villain from a comic book. Saitama's statement is met with anger as Crablant throws him away with his claw. While recalling his childhood dream of becoming a hero, Saitama emerges stronger than ever. He uses his tie to rip out the monster's eye, killing him in the process. At present, Saitama reminisces about his run-in with the Crablant and how it prompted him to train so hard that he became an undefeated hero at the expense of his hair. As Saitama rummages through his purse to pay the cashier, the ground beneath him begins to rattle violently. In the blink of an eye, Saitama finds himself in what appears to be the ruins of the grocery store. All of a sudden, a colossal titan appears in the city. As it occurs, the Titan was created from a steroid that was developed by his brother, a scientist who wanted to help his little brother achieve his dream of becoming the world's strongest man. The set of brothers set out to conquer the world when all of a sudden, Saitama pops up on the Titan's shoulder and nonchalantly tells him to wear some pants. Enraged by Saitama's imposition, the older brother orders the younger one to kill Saitama immediately. In a dazed fury, the Titan ends up crushing his own brother. With great muscles comes great stupidity. Or was that not the quote? After realizing his mistake, the Titan angrily charges at Saitama. With a single punch, Saitama once again defeats the bad guy. On his way home, Saitama realizes how the world is still a hellhole and he hasn't made any progress. What has changed is his ability to feel. The next morning, Saitama is rudely awakened by a species called Subterranean. They reveal to Saitama that due to overpopulation underground, they'd have come to claim Earth. A fight ensues between Saitama and the Subterranean. For the first time, Saitama feels the adrenaline rushing through his body. Just as he's about to take the Subterranean King, Saitama wakes up from his dreamy escapade. A loud commotion catches his attention. When he steps out, Saitama faces the actual Subterranean. The disappointing fight makes Saitama realize that the problem is that he is way too strong. While watering his plants, Saitama learns about a deadly mosquito outbreak that happens to cause an upheaval in the neighboring cities. As a mosquito lands on his hand, Saitama makes an attempt to kill it. With every vain attempt to eliminate the fly, Saitama grows more restless. Meanwhile, the insidious swarm of flies devours everything in its path, leaving a trail of destruction as it relentlessly advances towards the Z City. The once thriving urban landscape now stands empty, its residents seeking refuge from the impending danger. Amidst the abandoned streets, a looter seizes the moment and indulges in the act of looting the shops. With a malicious cackle, the looter mocks the cautious citizens for hiding from something as insignificant as a mosquito. In an instant, the man finds himself surrounded by millions of mosquitoes. With relentless bloodthirst, the mosquitoes attack themselves to the looter's body, leaving him pale and colorless. As it turns out, the mosquitoes happen to be working on the orders of a mosquito girl. A cyborg by the name of Genos appears on the empty streets to confront the seemingly invincible mosquito girl. As the battle rages on fiercely, the mosquito girl quickly realizes that she will need more blood to continue the fight with Genos. Once the swarm surrounds the mosquito girl to supply her blood, Genos begins to think that something bigger must be at play. Without wasting a second, he raises his arm to blow up the threat when Saitama comes running after a mosquito with a spray can. Upon locking eyes with the cyborg, Saitama gets instructed to evacuate the place immediately. However, Genos' warning comes a little too late as the mosquito girl emerges as indestructible. The battle continues on, leaving Genos weaker with every strike. As the mosquito girl charges towards Genos with a murderous intent, Saitama takes her out with a single slap. Genos' jaw hangs wide open at the causal display of power. Amazed by Saitama's power, he asks to be his disciple. The best day, Saitama opens the door and finds Genos standing in front of him. After letting him in, Saitama tells him to drink the tea and then be on his way. While looking at Genos, Saitama exclaims at how he is back in one piece. The cyborg reveals that as long as his parts are damaged, he can just replace them. Genos then asks Saitama about what parts he has. Saitama tells him that he doesn't have any. Surprised by the answer, Genos asks him about the material of his skin. Saitama once again tells him that it's his natural skin. Without thinking, Genos comments on his baldness, which makes Saitama angry. Pissed off, Saitama asks what his problem is. Genos' ears perk up as he eagerly asks Saitama if he wants to know about his problems. With a deadpan look, Saitama tells him that he is not interested. Despite Saitama's disinterest, Genos tells him how he was once a boy and had a loving family. However, one unfortunate day, a cyborg attacked his town, killing everyone on site, including his family. With no one to turn to, Genos goes to a Dr. Kusinov to modify his body. There in his lab, he vows to seek revenge on the cyborg that ruined his life. Genos tells Saitama that he is 19 now and has been going from town to town in pursuit of revenge. He further delves into how after every win against evil, he grew more reckless, and yesterday that recklessness nearly cost him his life had Saitama not been there. As Genos rambles on the same thing over and over, Saitama begins to get annoyed. He finally snaps and yells at Genos that he needs to shorten this gratitude speech. Elsewhere, inside his secret facility, a man analyzes the mosquito girl's fight with Saitama. When he learns that Saitama took her down with a single slap, he asserts that he must have Saitama for his experiments. Back at Saitama's place, Genos pleads with him to help him gain more power. Saitama tells him that he will help him, however, it won't be easy. Genos immediately accepts the challenge. All of a sudden, Saitama is attacked by a group of eccentric monsters, while Genos confronts an armored gorilla cyborg who tells him that he is from the House of Evolution. Saitama, on the other hand, easily defeats his foes and regroups with Genos to question the gorilla cyborg. Afraid of the duo, the cyborg discards his tough act and says that he will disclose everything. The armored gorilla begins narrating a tale of a promising scientist called Dr. Genos. He tells his audience that Dr. Genos received many praises for his intelligent mind, which led him to become more and more delusional. When Dr. Genos began proposing ideas of human evolution, he was marked as crazy and dangerous by his colleagues. This drove him to seclusion, where he diligently worked on his ideas until his prime faded away. At the age of 70, Dr. Genos finally found success in his research. First, he regained his youth, then cloned himself and created House of Evolution, where he performed research on animals, then on human beings. The gorilla is then rudely cut off by Saitama, who sharply tells him to just get to the point. Being an obedient disciple, Genos orders the armored gorilla to summarize the whole thing in 20 words. Abiding by their rules, the gorilla tells Saitama and Genos that Dr. Genos is interested in Saitama's body. Upon hearing this, Saitama flatly says that he is not interested in dudes, which made Genos emphasize on how Dr. Genos wants his body for research purposes as he exceeds human limitations. Genos then advises Saitama to strike first, since Dr. Genos seems to show no signs of relenting. Once Saitama agrees to attack, the two head over to Dr. Genos' laboratory. In the meantime, Dr. Genos gets informed by the armored gorilla about Saitama and Genos' plan. Afraid of losing his precious research, Dr. Genos orders his clones to release their one and only trump card, Carnage Kabuto. Upon hearing this, his clones begin to fret over the name of Carnage Kabuto. Dr. Genos calms his replicas by telling them that first he will activate all the traps that will hopefully be enough to take out Saitama and Genos. Once Saitama arrives on the spot, the zealous Genos rushes forward to burn down everything in sight. That ought to do it. As the smoke clears up, Saitama blankly tells Genos that it was rather mean of him to just burn everything down, as they never gave the bad guys a chance. Dr. Genos, on the other hand, approaches Carnage Kabuto after finding out that he has killed a bunch of his clones. He asks the gruesome abomination if he's satisfied by his carnage, to which he replies quite irritatedly that he has been locked underground for years despite being the strongest fighter of the House of Evolution. Dr. Genos nervously tells Carnage Kabuto that since he was mentally unstable, they had no choice but to keep him locked away. A mocking laughter rings through the eerie hallways as Carnage Kabuto tells Dr. Genos that the humans should be bowing to him for his physical and mental superiority. Dr. Genos stares at him in disgust while thinking about how he's nothing but a failure for lacking humanity. He then asks his despicable creation to get him Saitama dead or alive, and then he can have his way with him. As Genos and Saitama carefully tread the dark hallways, they are met with Carnage Kabuto and Dr. Genos carelessly tucked between his fingers. When Carnage Kabuto learns that Genos is unimportant to Dr. Genos' ambitions, he engraves the poor cyborg in the wall. Saitama tells the Hulk that since he turned Genos to a modern art piece, the fight is on. After taking Saitama to the facility's combat room, Carnage Kabuto is met with Genos' fire. However, he quickly takes the cyborg out, which fuels Saitama's anger. Dr. Genos comes stumbling to the combat room in hopes of seeing the battle between the toughest fighter in the House of Evolution and Saitama. As Carnage Kabuto lunges to attack Saitama, his entire existence begins to shake, which makes him run to the opposite end of the room. While studying Saitama, Kabuto begins to sweat in fear. He realizes then, in that moment, that had he taken Saitama on, he would have been killed. Appalled by Carnage Kabuto's reluctance to fight Saitama, Dr. Genos begins to grow impatient. As Carnage Kabuto asks Saitama the reason for his strength, Saitama tells Genos to pay close attention as he reveals his secret. With Genos present in the room, Saitama tells his audience that the secret to strength is religiously following a strict workout regimen and forsaking mindless comforts like AC or heaters. In short, the only way to become an omnipotent hero is to train so hard that your hair falls off. Upon hearing this, Genos angrily tells Saitama that this is just standard training and demands to know the true source of his power. When Saitama insists that he's telling the truth, Carnage Kabuto loses control and doubles in size. He announces that once he enters this phase, his lust for blood and death becomes unquenchable for weeks. As Carnage Kabuto begins to throw Saitama like a football, Saitama realizes the date and grows worried. In his worried state, he throws a punch which kills the monster on spot. Surprised by Saitama's anguished scream, Genos gets told by Genos that Saitama is upset about missing a mega sale in a supermarket. Once Saitama takes his leave with Genos, Genos realizes that he is so done with all the evolution crap. Later, a man by the name of Hammerhead gives a fiery speech on how he will reform society. He enthusiastically talks about how people should have the option to take breaks and relax, while others who want to work should willingly support everyone else. Moved by their leader's words, Hammerhead's devoted followers eagerly embrace his call to action. With unwavering loyalty, they swiftly execute his command to destroy the opulent world of Zeniru, the wealthiest man in town. As Hammerhead's followers unleash their fury on Zeniru's building, the once immaculate building comes toppling down due to the force of the battle suits. With the building destroyed, Hammerhead's follower sheepishly informs him that they have destroyed the wrong building. Unmoved by his mistakes, Hammerhead tells his loyal followers to march on Zeniru's building. In the meantime, Saitama wakes up from a dream and turns on the television. On the news, he learns about a terrorist group called the Paradisers wreaking havoc in town. While doing his morning routine, Saitama dubs the news as boring and not worthy of his time until the reporter announces that people with shaven heads must be avoided. In that moment, Saitama's whole world crashes as he realizes that the group of unemployed delinquents has stolen his look. As someone who has trained relentlessly to become a hero, Saitama decides to take the matter in his own hand. Meanwhile, the Paradisers, under the command of Hammerhead, unleash a series of chaos in their wake of destruction. While creating ruckus on the road, Hammerhead and his followers are confronted by a vigilant called the Mumin Rider. The air is filled with hopeful cheers as the Mumin Rider approaches the delinquents. However, within seconds, the Mumin Rider is knocked out cold. Inside Zeniru's grand mansion, he gets advised by his butler to seek safe harbor because of the impending danger brought by the Paradisers. Refusing to flee, Zeniru tells him that his reputation will take a plummet if he does something so cowardly. A boy by the name of Sonic tells Zeniru that he is lucky the event took place while he is still under contract. Sonic then reassures Zeniru that he is safe as long as he is there. However, he should worry about how he is going to dispose of hundreds of dead men. Accompanied by the Paradisers, Hammerhead approaches the Golden Turd, an estate owned by Zeniru. But before they can cause damage, Sonic greets them at the entrance. With his lightning speed, Sonic beheads the Paradisers. Meanwhile, in the town, Saitama gets labeled as a terrorist for being bald. Is having no hair a crime? With only Hammerhead stranding, Sonic throws a kunai on his head, which temporarily holds him down. As Sonic takes a call, Hammerhead runs in the jungle to find safe harbor. While running, he stumbles upon none other than Saitama himself. In a laboratory, Genos gets his body fixed by Dr. Kusino. He tells him how Saitama saved his life twice now. Upon listening to Genos, Dr. Caseno tells him that he is currently working on a new augmentation, which will help him surpass his master. Back at the jungle, Hammerhead asks Saitama if he wants to sign up as his follower. Saitama refuses him and says that he is just a person who likes being a hero for fun. As Hammerhead brings all of his power to play, Saitama realizes how he is a lot like him. After destroying his war suit, Saitama sends Hammerhead running in a different direction. Alone in the forest, Saitama is greeted by the stern Sonic, who mistakes him for a paradiser because of his shiny bald head. Despite Saitama's insistence that he is a hero, Sonic refutes his claims by saying that he has never heard of him. As Sonic rambles on about being a ninja, Saitama tells Sonic that judging from his innocent smile, he knows that he just wants to try his moves on him. Once Sonic begins to cartwheel and flaunt his moves, Saitama takes him out with a punch to his groin. After returning home, Saitama confides in Genos how nobody knows his status as a hero despite him doing so much for the community. Genos realizes the problem and asks Saitama if he has been registered in the hero registry. Upon opening the site, Saitama learns that self-proclaimed heroes are just weirdos in cape. Saitama then tells Genos that if he registers himself as a hero with him, he will officially take him under his wings. Hungry for strength, Genos immediately jumps on the opportunity. During a high-level meeting at the prestigious Hero Association, the esteemed authorities find themselves deeply concerned and engaged in a discussion, driven by the staggering increase of application forms flooding their office. Recognizing the urgency of the situation and desiring to elevate the overall caliber of heroes, one of the head advocates for a stricter entry to the world of heroes. Meanwhile, with unwavering determination radiating from his core, Saitama easily navigates through every physical assessment thrown in his path to becoming a recognizable hero. Saitama's sheer display of power causes his competitors to retreat in defeat. After clearing the written and physical assessment, Genos meets up with Saitama to discuss their test result. As it turns out, Genos passed with flying colors and was given an 8S ranked position. He tells Saitama about his interview where he was asked about the House of Evolution. Believing that it was Genos who took out the bad guys, the interview panel grants Genos an esteemed rank. After narrating the chain of events, Genos learns that Saitama has been assigned a lowly C-rank hero classification. Deeply shocked by the unfair rank, Genos firmly tells Saitama that he will speak to a high-ranking authority so that the error can be rectified. Saitama cuts him off and tells him that he will just embarrass him further. Their conversation is cut short by an announcement, informing them about a seminar for the newly appointed heroes. Irked by the whole situation, Saitama tells Genos that what matters is that they passed. Elsewhere, the news of Genos being awarded an S rank is dispatched to a mysterious guy who approves the decision. During the seminar, Saitama and Genos are greeted by a boastful instructor who tries to impose himself on them. Unbothered by the teacher's presence, Saitama continues to daydream about his upcoming meal. On the way back home, Genos informs Saitama that the Hero Association was formed after 3 years. Saitama, as disinterested as ever, tells Genos that the Hero Association holds quite boring seminars. Genos stops in his tracks and says to Saitama that soon the world will know their name, which directly means that he is now officially his student. With that, Genos bids a conflicted Saitama goodbye for the day. Once he leaves, Saitama begins to think whether he made the right decision or not. Back at the Hero Association, Saitama and Genos' trainer Snek complains about the duo's attitudes to the bespectacled worker. He arrogantly questions the legitimacy of their title as heroes. The bespectacled worker reveals to him that Genos received perfect scores on the physical and written exam, while Saitama surpassed the physical examination with staggering results. Once the bespectacled worker informs Snek that he might be outranked by Saitama soon, he grows apprehensive and decides to crush Saitama. Within seconds, Saitama puts Snek in his place and continues his walk back home. The next day, Genos informs Saitama that they are still registered by their regular name. If they perform more heroic acts, then they will gain new titles. When Genos tells Saitama that he might be labeled as the blonde cyborg, Saitama bitterly says that he doesn't want to be known as the baldy in a cape. Since the two are officially in a teacher-student relationship, Genos asks Saitama to duel with him. As the cyborg charges towards Saitama with his newly appointed specs, Saitama skillfully dodges every attack directed towards him. Upset by Saitama's lack of seriousness, Genos asks him to get serious with him. Once Saitama balls his fist to punch Genos, the cyborg realizes that he can never reach Saitama's level, let alone surpass him. At the udon shop, Genos and Saitama are greeted by the mysterious man who introduces himself as Unmatched, Class A Rank 1 hero. As Unmatched asks Genos to step out with him for a bit, Saitama warns him that he might be there as a rookie crusher. After returning back, Genos informs Saitama that Unmatched was just there to welcome him. The girls present inside the udon shop quickly surround Genos and ask him to shake hands with them. Watching the cyborg live out his dreams, Saitama sighs wishfully. It has been 5 days since Saitama's debut as a hero. Not much has changed except for the fact that Genos now resides with him. Saitama studies Genos as he scribbles down something in his journal. When asked what he is up to, Genos reveals that he is just noting down his lessons and training regimen. Upon hearing this, Saitama begins to think how he is duping Genos as he can't find anything worthy of teaching Genos. Saitama begins to beat himself over for not being able to produce anything worthy of teaching. He thinks about how he can teach him strength training as that's all he knows, but then decides against it as Genos happens to be a cyborg. Just oil the dude's mechanical parts and he will do just fine. Saitama's train of thoughts is broken by Genos, who informs him that if he remains inactive, then his name will be removed from the hero registry. Saitama's face begins to darken by the news and exclaims that he never heard of anything major happening in the city in the news, to which Genos replies that the news only covers important cases. However, if he wishes to survive as a hero, he must actively find petty cases to solve. Genos further ominously reveals to him that many C-rankers change careers after finding nothing worthy to solve. As Saitama hurries to find a case to solve, he stops to tell Genos that if he wants to improve in strength, then he must change his mindset and aim higher. Internally, Saitama curses himself for making shit up. Before leaving, Saitama advises Genos to break into the top 10 level heroes. With that being said, Saitama steps out to fight crime. He runs all around but quickly gives up after realizing that the city is way too tranquil for him today. Saitama makes his way home by saying that he will leave tomorrow's problem to his future self. The next day, Saitama begins to fret as the city is once again at peace. Damn it, where are the bad guys when you need them? All of a sudden, a kunai is thrown in his way. When Saitama looks up, he recognizes Sonic standing before him. As Sonic darkly tells Saitama that the day has come when he finally levels with him, Saitama discards his words by telling him that he is busy today and walks away. As Sonic tries to stop Saitama, the man bites through his blade. Taken aback by the event, Sonic watches Saitama in horror. Saitama tells him sternly that he is in a crappy mood and whoever crosses him today will get punched. All of a sudden, a burly man appears on the scene. He introduces himself as a hero called Tank Top Tiger. Tank Top Tiger reveals that he has come to apprehend this scary troublemaker. Believing that Sonic is the troublemaker, Saitama scolds him for it. Tank Top Tiger then puts his hand on Saitama's bald head and states that he was referring to him as the troublemaker. A woman reveals how Saitama had been running around the town with a murderous look on his face. Saitama tries to insist that he is a hero too, which makes Tank Top Tiger say that he never even heard of Saitama before. As the Tank Top Tiger gets lauded for his presence, Sonic intervenes and puts the burly hero to rest. After witnessing Tank Top Tiger's fall, the civilians shriek in horror. In order to make Saitama right him, Sonic causes damage to the neighboring buildings. Once Saitama apprehends Sonic by throwing him on the ground, he wonders whether this act will count as a heroic act. Meanwhile, at the Hero Association, the higher-ups get a wind of Saitama's actions. The scene changes to a group of officials dispatching two rank heroes to a ghost town in City Z, a place with the largest number of monster sightings. Upon entering the ghost town, Golden Ball and Spring Mustache are greeted by a monster called Kombu Infinity. With his infinite tentacles, Kombu Infinity immediately takes out Golden Ball and Spring Mustache. As the monster looks around the empty streets, he sees Saitama casually walking towards him. When Saitama sees the monster's extensive Kombu tentacles approaching him, he realizes how he forgot to buy some Kombu. In the next moment, Saitama is seen cooking up some Kombu. Genos greets him in the kitchen and says how there's a lot of Kombu outside. He points out to Saitama how Kombu is good for hair. Saitama yells at Genos for bringing up the subject of hair. Meanwhile, humans and monsters alike begin to gossip about the ghost town and how it has caused fear in both species. With urgent matters at hand, Genos is called to the Hero Association where he meets Bang, also known as Silver Fang, a highly respected hero with an impressive Class S rank of 3. The Silver Fang informs Genos the Hero Association called upon them to neutralize a massive threat headed their way in the form of a meteorite. Bang continues by telling Genos that after careful evaluation, it was discovered that there is nothing they can do and advises Genos to evacuate with his loved ones while there is still time. As the call for evacuation reverberates through the streets of City Z, a wave of panic grips the hearts of the people, leading to a huge road blockage. With the meteorite now in sight, Genos comes to the conclusion that it is too late to evacuate now. He takes out a new prototype to tackle the threat. Before playing his card, Genos is greeted by another S-class cyborg called Beaufoy. When Genos asks Beaufoy to aid him in the perilous mission, the cyborg simply refuses by stating that he is just here to test his new specs. Genos tries to reason with him by telling him that if the meteorite hits, his life will be at stake too. Beaufoy impolitely apologizes and reveals that he is just a remote-controlled drone. He then tells Genos to call him by his hero name, the Metal Knight. As the two heroes end their conversation, Metal Knight fires his missiles at the meteorite. Amazed by the destructive power, Genos realizes that he must stay clear of him. Once the smoke clears up and the meteorite is still intact, Genos decides to use his firepower on it. While charging towards it, Genos' confidence begins to dwindle as he starts to think about failures. Appearing from behind, Bang assures Genos that he's way too young to worry about failures. With his advice, Genos uses his immense firepower to push back the meteorite. As the meteorite shows no sign of budging, Genos begins to await his doom whilst still trying to push back the meteorite from crashing in the city. With 9 seconds to go, Genos gives up entirely and tells Bang to evacuate. Just then, Saitama appears and orders Bang to take care of Genos. With that being said, Saitama flies towards the meteorite. Determined to once again save the day, Saitama asserts to the meteorite that it won't be landing on this town today. With one punch, Saitama shatters the huge meteorite. While Saitama may have stopped the meteorite from falling on the city, its fragments still manage to cause citywide destruction. During their leisure time, Genos thinks about how people are blaming Saitama for the destruction. Saitama then breaks Genos' chain of thoughts by asking him if he thinks their ranking went up after the catastrophic event. Genos happily informs Saitama that his ranking went up while he managed to score a place as number 5 in Class C. Genos goes on to commend Saitama for his valiant act and tells Saitama that what he did should have landed him a spot in Class A, but the Hero Association must have assumed it was him and Metal Knight that neutralized the situation. Saitama changes the topic by asking Genos what Tiger and Dragon level threats mean. Genos informs him that Tiger level threats means a danger that threatens millions of life, while Dragon level threat means massive destruction city-wise. He further explains about God level threats, which mean human extinction. When Saitama learns that heroes respond according to the threat level, he casually says that heroes should respond without caring about fancy titles. Impressed by Saitama's words, Genos immediately starts recording it in his journal. As Saitama steps out to assess the damage, he is greeted by Tank Top Tiger and his older brother Tank Top Black Hole. Jealous of Saitama's new rank, they decide to turn the crowd against him by loudly yelling at him to give up on being a hero. The innocent masses, hurt by the loss of their homes, quickly turn against Saitama. Surrounded by chants, telling him to give up being a hero, Saitama's face begins to darken. From afar, Bang watches the people scorn the very person that saved their butts. He pities Saitama but decides to not intervene. Meanwhile, the Tank Top brothers decide to take things up a notch by publicly challenging Saitama to fight them. Within seconds, Saitama overpowers them. With the brothers out, Saitama angrily addresses the crowd and says that he doesn't give a darn about their complaints. Before he can continue to berate the civilians, Genos steps in and tells Saitama to walk with him back home. On their way, Genos earnestly tells Saitama that even if the crowd doesn't appreciate him, he will always continue to follow him. When a giant octopus monster rises from the sea to terrorize humanity, Mumen Rider rushes to the scene only to find the monster slain in half. Back home, he hops on his computer and learns that the hero responsible for this is none other than Saitama, a Class C with notoriety of stealing other heroes' credit. At home, Saitama switches on the television and learns that several sea monsters calling themselves Clan of Sea Folk have appeared in Jay's city. With only Stinger, a classic hero, facing the threat, the Hero Association has called for help. Meanwhile, at the scene of action, Stinger boasts about being strong. The sea monsters remind him that his little fan club has left and he can go easy on the praises. Without paying heed to their words, Stinger deals a blow which instantly kills the monsters. However, his little victory is ruined by the Deep Sea King. Saitama and Genos speed towards J City in hopes of apprehending the threat. In the meantime, Lighting Max is taken down by the cunning Deep Sea King. Just as he's about to fall to his death, he's saved by S-Class hero, Pura Puri Prisoner. Sonic emerges from the smoke but decides not to intervene between Pura Puri Prisoner and Deep Sea King's fight. With his intense love for cute boys, Pura Puri Prisoner decides to give his all so that he can save boys from the monster's cruelty. After Pura Puri Prisoner transforms into his angel style, Sonic decides that it's time to bounce as he doesn't want to watch a buck-naked man fight. Before Sonic can run, Pura Puri Prisoner is overwhelmed by the Deep Sea King, who then addresses him and says that as the leader of Clan of Sea Folk, he must rule the world. At first, Sonic arrogantly charges at the Monster King, but with the rain aiding the monster, he doubles up in size and power. Sonic then realizes how he was wrong to take on the Deep Sea King on his own. While fleeing from the fight, a naked Sonic encounters Genos and advises him to abandon the idea of fighting with the Deep Sea King. Meanwhile, the Deep Sea King attacks the evacuation shelter. There he is confronted by low-ranking but determined heroes. Meanwhile, Saitama hitches a ride with the Mumen Rider. When he spots a naked Sonic fleeing, Saitama asks Mumen Rider to go without him. As the word of the Deep Sea King's attack on the evacuation shelter reaches his ears, Mumen Rider throws his phone and rushes towards the impending danger. As Saitama returns and sees the phone, he picks it up and hears all about the Monster King's terror. Genos appears in the evacuation shelter to rescue thousands of people. Unfortunately, the threat proves too great for him, causing him to lose one arm. After the nearly fatal attack, Genos begins to think how he never learns from his past mistakes. Meanwhile, the Hero Association decides to send Saitama in the face of danger to assess his strength. Back at the shelter, the Deep Sea King uses his acidic spit to destroy Genos. Just as he's about to kill Genos, Mumen Rider makes an honest but weak attempt to tackle the huge monster. As the Deep Sea King throws the hero around like a rag doll, Mumen Rider screams and says that he is aware of his weakness and he won't submit to him. Taken aback by Mumen Rider's sentimental speech, the people begin to cheer him on. Fueled by the crowd's hopeful cheers, Mumen Rider charges at the Monster King. With one punch, the poor hero lands in Saitama's careful arms. Saitama commends him for his determination. Before taking on the Deep Sea King, Saitama stops to greet Genos. He then shifts his attention back to the monster in front of him. The crowd immediately recognizes Saitama as a Class C hero. Filled with hopelessness, the people watching this scene await their doom. Meanwhile, the Deep Sea King confronts Saitama by telling him that he is the ruler of all living organisms. Bored by the Monster King's words, Saitama gives him one of his powerful punches that immediately finishes him off. Unable to register the epic showdown, the crowd gawks at the scene with first confusion then amazement. The next day, with the functioning Genos by his side, Saitama receives a mail drone from the Hero Association. Upon opening it, Genos reveals that the drone carries fan letters for heroes. When Saitama opens up a letter addressed to him, Genos takes a peek and reads the disdainful words directed to Saitama. He then begins recalling the moment after Saitama took down the Monster King. At first, the crowd cheered Saitama, and then a man started dissing other heroes, prompting Saitama to rescue the honors of those that fought valiantly. He tells the crowd how the heroes beat the monster up, making it easier for him to finish the job. The crowd immediately turns on Saitama while lauding other heroes for their efforts. In the present day, Saitama opens up another letter. Unlike the previous letter, Saitama sees words of gratitude instead of discouragement. He then sees a letter by the Hero Association and realizes that they have scheduled a meeting with him. Upon reaching the Hero Association, Saitama is offered a promotion, a B rank. This decision by the board is met with doubts by some workers of the association. The bespectacled worker encourages his fellow colleagues to trust Saitama and wait until he is given a chance to prove himself. A man mask is also informed about Saitama's new rank. His face quickly darkens once he comes to know that it was Saitama that defeated the Deep Sea King. After going through an evaluation, Saitama gets promoted to Class B. On his way back home, Saitama stops by a food shop where he runs into Mumen Rider, who warmly welcomes him and offers to buy him food. As it turns out, the thank you letter sent to him was by none other than the Mumen Rider. After the death of the Subterranean King and the Deep Sea King, the Terror Lizard clan makes an attempt to wipe out humanity. To stop their evil plan, the Hero Association sends Tatsumaki to eliminate the monster. When the Ancient King tries to squash Tatsumaki, she makes sure that the huge monster lives up to his name by turning him into a pile of bones. Meanwhile, Saitama and Genos visit Bang at his home. When Genos questions him about his strong dojo students, Bang reveals that most of his disciples were sent to hospital after his student Garo went out of control and lashed out on his peers. All of a sudden, a messenger barges through the doors and informs Bang and Genos that they're needed at the association. Genos asks Saitama to come along with him, to which he agrees. Upon reaching the association, Bang and Genos are properly greeted by Atomic Samurai, a Class S hero. When Saitama extends a hand in greeting, Atomic Samurai brushes him off by saying that he only greets strong heroes. At the association, Saitama also meets Tatsumaki, who tries to give him attitude. Saitama pays no mind to her, which makes Tatsumaki angry. With all the best heroes present, Sitch begins to brief them on the urgency of the situation. He starts by saying that while they are the best of the best, there is a possibility that they might not survive the mission. Stick continues on by revealing that the seer Madame Shibabawa has passed away after a coughing fit. However, before she died, she left a note stating that the Earth is in trouble. All of a sudden, the association begins to shake violently. Outside, a huge alien spaceship arrives and destroys the entire city within seconds. Saitama immediately rushes to assess the damage. After coming across the huge spaceship, Saitama decides to infiltrate it. Meanwhile, the rest of the heroes attempt to neutralize the threat from the ground. An alien keeping watch curses Melzarger for letting Saitama slip inside the spaceship. The king, Lord Boros, sees his subject panic and asks him the source for his apprehension. When the alien reveals that a man has destroyed 23% of the spaceship, Boros assures him that as long as the power sphere is intact, the ship won't fall apart. In the meantime, Puri prisoner tries to beat Melzarger with his bare hands. Despite being amazed by the giant's strength, Ian warns him that Melzarger won't perish as he contains impressive regenerative powers. While fighting with one of Melzarger's heads, Metal Bat finds a marble ball embedded inside it. Upon crushing the marble, Metal Ball sees the head finally perish away. He advises the heroes to destroy the marble, which happens to be Melzarger's vitality. In the meantime, Saitama finally has a face-off with the alien Jerry Ivanshoot. Despite using his telekinesis on Saitama, Jerry Ivanshoot finds him standing in perfect condition. Saitama tells the alien that anyone can throw a few pebbles around. He then counters Darigonshu's telekinesis attack by throwing a stone at him, which kills him on the spot. From afar, another alien directs a series of missiles towards the heroes. Before the artillery can do any damage, Tatsumaki uses her power to send the missiles back to the ship, causing explosions all across it. Inside the spaceship, Saitama confronts Boros, who tells him that he came to Earth looking for a formidable opponent, one that will liven up his boring life. Saitama punches Boros, which turns him into an omnipotent version of himself. While fighting one another, Boros acknowledges Saitama's strength. In return, Saitama tells him that he's pretty strong too. Tatsumaki, on the other hand, uses her psychic powers to destroy the spaceship, which makes the aliens cry in terror. While admiring Tatsumaki's strength, Genos is greeted by Drive Knight, who advises him to stay clear of Metal Knight. When Genos asks him to explain himself, Driving Knight leaves by saying that Metal Knight is not his friend. Melzarger is finally finished off by the combined efforts of Bang and Atomic Samurai. Meanwhile, as the intense fight with Boros rages on, Saitama finds himself in outer space after taking a blow from Boros, no pun intended. On his return back to the spaceship, Saitama defeats Boros, which makes the alien realize that from the get-go he had no chance of winning against Saitama. Amaya Mask appears on the scene and berates the S-Class heroes for doing a pathetic job. In a single hit, he kills all the surviving aliens. With the aliens culled, Metal Knight redesigned the Hero Association with the remnants of the spaceship. After a few days, Saitama is seen wailing in agony after winning easily against a monster.